First part of the warm-up, we're actually going to a squat pattern. It's going to be slow tempo, and I'm going to give you a few coaching points as we go. We're going to do 20 repetitions. So, shoulder width at the start, so you want the width of your feet slightly wider than your armpits, arms for counterbalance. As we go, we're going to push our knees out a little bit, going to come down to parallel. Now go as low as you can, but you have good form. If you're a little bit tight in the calves, or you're not quite warmed up, that's fine. Just go to position. So it's a half squat, a three-quarter squat there, that's fine. We'll just build the tempo up as we go. But as you do it, try to think about pushing the knees outwards. So ideally, you're trying to get the knees outside the line of the foot. That's the best position. That will help us keep our torso more upright. At the top position, stand nice and tall. Gently squeeze your buttocks. So around about 10, 9 or 10, let's do 10 more. 10, 9, 7, 6, 5. Last couple. Last one, hold it. If you can, push your knees out. You're going to bring your elbows inside your knees, push your hands together and try and push your knees out. If your bottom's up a little bit, that's fine. If you're more flexible, try and go a bit lower. And then bring yourself up and out. Okay, next thing I'm going to do, even my timer's going to keep turning itself off. Okay, from there, the next part of the warm-up is going to go into, come on, bear with me, reverse lunges. So, I'm going to use a mat, because ideally I want to put your knee on the floor. So I'm actually going to stand on the edge of my mat, I'm going to step back, touch my knee on the floor, stand fully up, step, lower, and make sure you keep your front foot, the heel here, flat in the ground. So nice and smooth, this is a bit of a stretch. Try and keep the spine nice and upright. Ideally at the bottom of your lunge, your knee, your hips and your back knee should be around about 90 degrees. I want the knee to brush the floor. Just to get a little bit more stretch in the glutes, in the hamstrings. Again, if you're a little bit tight and you can't go for that range of motion, that's fine. If you're able to do so, last 10. And after this, we'll go to the floor. We'll do a couple of patterns that will then mobilize through the hips and through the spine. Last 5. Okay, next exercise. We want the mat from here, we're pretty much on the mat from here on. So we're going to be doing 2 movements. The first one is going to be facing the ceiling. I will show you the movement and then you can join in. So, we're going to lie on the floor. Our goal is to bring this leg up. If you only bring it to here, that's fine. You're going to reach across and try and tap the floor. If you're more flexible, you try and bring your foot towards the opposite hand. Keep the head relaxed. This is the tempo to go at. So, gentle reach. Try and keep the opposite shoulder down, but if it lifts up slightly, as you get more warmed up, try and relax the shoulder down the ground further. But again, you're going to have to adapt it for your own flexibility. And as you loosen off, try and go a little bit higher in the hand. So we'll try and bring it right the way over here, getting a stretch on the outside of the hip, the hamstring, the buttocks, and all the way through the spine. Last one on each side, come across, try and hold the leg. If you can put the foot on the floor, grab the toes, hold it there for a second, or put the hand on the outside of the leg, with a little stretch to the spine, the outside of the hip and the lumbar spine. Other side, come across, reach. If you can grab the foot, do so. If it's the leg up here, gently bring it into a stretch. And there should be no joint pain, just a stretch in the soft tissue. From there, we're going to go into a scorpion. It's a reverse movement. What we're going to be doing is we're going to turn the head away from the side that we're going towards. So I'll show you a couple of reps first, and then you join in. Again, ideally, you're going to try and bring your foot towards your hand. First of all, lift the leg slightly, reach across. You guys join in. If you can't get to the hand, just get a position that's comfortable. So I'll do a lower one, it might just be here. But if I can get higher up, nearer my hand, that's great. But I look the opposite way. So if I bring my leg to my right, I look to my left. Should feel glutes engaging. I don't want any discomfort in your lower back. If you do, do not lift your leg as high. Last 4. Little pause at the end of each movement. Last couple. Hang out for a second. Come across. Hang out for a second. Okay, guys, bring yourself up. That is the warm-up. First section done. Okay, from there, we're going to integrate some stretches. So your first stretch, what we're going to be doing is we're going to stretch out and then we're going to activate. So, a lunge position. What we're going to be doing is our target is the front of the thigh, all the way towards the belly button to the upper thigh. In this position, you're going to push the pelvis forward, so I'll let this knee drift forward. I want to feel the stretch come to the front of my thigh here. I can help that by squeezing the buttock on the leg that I'm stretching. And I relax the buttock and try and bring the stretch slightly further forward. And we're going to hold that for another 20 seconds. If you feel you can go further into the stretch as the tissue starts to relax, you can do so. But again, keep the stretch focused on here, nothing in the lower back, and don't let your lower back arch either. So squeeze the glute again if you want. Try and go a bit further. Okay, use the front leg to push you back, and then change sides. So again, I start in this position, so I end of my lunge. I find the first tissue barrier, so I'm not trying to get a massive stretch, I just want to be aware of the first point of stretch. Then I can squeeze the glutes, and I can relax it and try and get further, opening up the tissue here. Keep it nice and tall, don't let the back arch. Then I can squeeze the glute again for a few seconds. Relax the glute, see if I can edge further forward, but always keeping the stretch in the target muscle, front of the thigh. And squeeze one more time and relax to the next level. Use the front leg to push you back, and then from there, old school, go into a floor bridge. So we stretch out the front of the thigh, the hip flexors, and now we're going to fire the glutes up. So the tempo is slow. The technique is this. You should be able to touch your heels with your fingertips. You're going to lift your toes off the floor, and you're going to try and push down on the ground progressively until lift happens. You're not just going to thrust yourself in the air in fast tempo. As you lead down, try and lead the buttocks to the ground first. So this is not a Pilates roll-up. This is a rigid spine. Focus on the hip joint. Top position, squeeze the glutes, nice straight line to the knee, the hip and the shoulder. Control down, lowering the buttock to the ground. And then again, keep the heels pushing the ground, lift up smoothly. You might feel a little stretch on the hip flex as well, as the glutes fire up. So it's hips, rib cage leads, glutes lower down. So that's going to stop you flexing through the spine. So rib cage pushes up, the hips will obviously follow. Gluteals or buttocks lead down, so the spine stays completely rigid throughout. Last repetition, squeeze and hold, keep the toes off the ground, lower down and lead with the hips. Okay, from there, back into the hip flexor stretch. So what we're trying to do here is each time we get the stretch, you can get a bit further. So now, go into the stretch where you left off. So I'm a lot further in my stretch this time. Now again, I'll squeeze the glutes. Then I'll relax and drop a bit further forward. I've done one more time. I'll squeeze. So I'm squeezing the buttock on this side. I relax it and try and get a bit further forward. I'm not going to stretch quite as long on this time around because we've already got some release of tissue. So the importance of this muscle is when you sit at your desk too much or sit in the chair watching telly or homeschooling the kids, these muscles get tight. So change sides, find the first stretch, which should be a lot further than the first time we came to it. Squeeze the glute, relax, go to the next tissue barrier. We'll hang out there for a moment. And we stretch it, squeeze again, and then stretch to the next point. By now you should have full range of motion of your hip flexors. Use the front leg, it's very important. Use that front leg to push you back out. You don't want to be firing these muscles up when they've just been lengthened. They won't thank you for it. And then we go back into a second set of floor bridges. So hopefully the top position of the floor bridges now, you'll feel a little bit easier if you're a little bit tight. So again, set up is I can reach the fingertips to the heels. I lift my toes up. I think about lifting the spine as a whole, thinking rib cage leads and the buttocks lead down. We're not going to relax the bottom. As soon as we get to the top, squeeze, control down, lowering the hips. When your buttocks brush the floor, you come back up. So we try and keep tension in the gluteals. I think the arms be relaxed, the head is relaxed. And as you lift the hips up, you'll feel the spine just lift up as a solid unit. There should be no rolling through the spine. We're not trying to stretch the spine out in this movement. We're trying to focus on hip extension. Last couple of reps. Just double check the technique. If the rib cage is leading, so you don't flex the spine. The glutes are leading down, so you keep the spine aligned. And from there, I'm going to come back up. Next one. We're going to now build off the hip flexors and we're going to integrate that into a quad stretch. So those who haven't done this before, it is a sideline quad stretch. If you haven't, watch me do the first rep. I'm going to lay on the ground. The leg on the ground is the target leg. From here, I'm going to bend the foot, grab the foot with my hand. I'm then going to pull the knee back a little bit. I'm going to relax my arm either in front or above my head. I'm then going to work my heels and my bottom. I'm going to rotate across the ground, let my legs slide across the ground. And I'm trying to keep my foot near my bottom. If you struggle to reach your foot, you could use a towel. And I roll back onto my side. Then I roll back to the front again. The whole time, you're trying to keep the top of your pelvis, where your belt line would be, pushed down. So as I rotate forward, I'm pushing the top of my pelvis into the floor, keeping it in contact with the floor. So I'm integrating the big hip flexor with the smaller hip flexor we just stretched. Okay, guys, you're going to change sides for me. So again, I'm going to lie on the opposite side, the legs on the ground. Best way is to bend it, reach, wrap your hand around, pull the knee back, find a good arm position that suits your flexibility. From here, you're going to rotate down, let the front knee slide across the ground so you can do the pivot bone down. Use the foot to push you back into side lying. You might find through this there's an area or two where you're a little bit tighter. What you can do is you can just hang out on those tighter areas. If it burns a little bit, there's a bit of connective tissue that's very tight, just come back off that and then back up into it. So you've got a particularly tight area, you can come away from it and then back up the tissue. If there's no particular tight areas, just work smoothly through. The last one, obviously you're trying to get that heel to the bottom, so as you relax that might be something that starts to happen for you. And then from there, we're now going to a slightly more focused hip bridge. It's a single leg version, but there's something called a cook hip lift. So what we'll be doing, I will do it on the leg nearest you. So the same principle, toes off the ground. I hold on to the knee, either here or the back of the leg. And from there, take a big breath in, hold the breath, and push. And you won't get as high on a single leg. If you're trying to keep the rib cage leading, join in, bottom lowers down. We're just doing about 6 to 7 of these. If it helps you, relax the arms, that's fine. You've got the strength to hold that leg in position. But I want the toes off the floor. I want the power coming through the heel. I want the glutes firing up. And I want that hip flexor lengthened because the glutes are inhibiting it. So you might find as you go higher or get into each rep, you might get a fraction more height. Okay, change sides. So either hold the knee again or just hold it in position. Toes off the ground, big breath in, drive the heel down, aim for height. If you're particularly flexible lower back, do not let your lower back go into extension. It should be neutral, so it's a natural lumbar curve. The movement is all from the hip joint. Let's do 4 more. Breath, drive the heel, try and get a bit more height with each rep, and make sure it comes from the hip joint. It's a good contraction of the glutes. Last 2. And again, rib cage leads, pelvis leads down. Okay, ladies and gents, from there, you've got some water, get a quick sip of water, you've got a few moments rest, and we go to the next section. Okay, so what we're going to be doing next is we're going to work a little bit more on the spine. So we focus on the hips, we're now going to go through the spine, and we're going to go through some of the spinal muscles. So first one is going to be cat-cow. We're going to do that for about 45 seconds. So cat-cow is going to be putting the back into an arch. The top position, the cat, is the stretch. The bottom position is a relaxation only. On all fours, right angle in the shoulder and the hip. The stretch is head down, shoulder blades pushed away, and the spine round. This is where we hold for a few seconds. And then we're going to drop. So we invert the spine, we look up slightly, but don't crane your neck up, you'll compress the facet during the cervical spine, we don't want that. And then push. This is the stretch. Try and feel you round, you bring the pubic bone underneath you, that will stretch the lumbar spine. The arms pushed away will stretch the thoracic spine. And we invert, gently look up and relax there. And we do 2 more. Slowly push away, bring the pubic bone forward, feel a gentle stretch, come back down. Last one, what we're going to do is we're going to hold the top position. So we come to the top, pubic bone under, and now hold that position and very gently push yourself back a few degrees while maintain this pelvic tilt. And that will get a little bit more stretch in the lumbar spine. Hold that for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax, come out. Okay, from there, we're going to mobilize the thoracic spine. So that's anything that's got attachment of the ribs, so that's going to be from this region, your cervical spine, through to here where your ribs are. You're going to bring your hands, you're going to place them base of neck. You're going to gently bring your elbows together. Imagine your elbows as a giant pen, and you're going to write in the air the figure 8. Now, if you struggle with the coordination of the figure 8, you can just do some circles, but I want you to do different directions in the circles. If you can coordinate the figure 8, do that for me. The hardest position for most of you is going to be as I come back up to try and bring the chest to the ceiling. So that's where most of us get tight as we try, or as we spend too much time at our desk, we start to lose the capacity to extend our spine. So think extension, you can change the sequence of rotation. Bring the chest up. Gently flex here. As you get into it, try and get a bit further. Make sure there's no discomfort in the spine itself. And guys, I'm going to finish there. Okay, next one. We're now going to work on the lower fibers of the abdominal wall. So we're going to kind of build this up. So what we're going to be doing, this is not a hard movement, but it's a controlled movement. What you're going to be doing is you're going to place your fingertips together underneath your lower back. Underneath your lower back, the crest of your lumbar curve is your belly button. That's the 3rd lumbar vertebrae. So opposite my belly button, my fingers go, they touch together. I'm going to gently push my lower back into the ground to compress my fingertips. I'm going to lift one leg up, bend at the knee. I'm simply going to reach the leg out. I'm going to bring the heel to the ground. And I'm going to come back in. The challenge is to feel that the pressure on your fingertips does not change. So if I lengthen that leg, I've got to work a little bit harder to push the lumbar spine down into my fingertips. So this is about motor control. It's not about strength. You've all got the strength, still we have the control to do this. So we're teaching to stabilize our deep lumbar muscles whilst lengthening your hip flexors. Last couple. Keep the pressure, it will get harder. If you struggle in the head position, you can adapt it. So if I do a shorter one, it will just be able to reach as far as I can control. Then I come back in. Change legs. This is a relatively easy version because the other leg on the ground is helping to stabilize my pelvis as well. So we're starting these quite easy. Okay, from here, gently push down to the ground against your fingers. Lengthen, keep the pressure as the leg gets longer and lowers. And come back in. If it helps, a little breath in. Push the belly button or push the lower back into the fingertips. Try and be as smooth as you can. If you feel there's any sort of juddering or shaking at any phase, that's indicating an issue with tissues. So we're trying to work on the quality of movement. Not just how many reps you can do, it's the quality that we care about. Again, just push the fingertip, press the fingertips to the lower back. Last repetition. Okay, bring yourself up from there. Okay, next one. We're going to go into a stretch for the lower back. We're going to adapt to what's called a child pose. Sorry, bear with me a second. I've just got to adapt to my screen. Something's happened. And that's got a cookie come up. Get rid of this. He doesn't want to buy that. Right, okay, so what we're going to be doing now is we're going to stretch out the muscles that sit either side of the lumbar spine. Attaches from the spine to the rib cage to the pelvis. So I'm going to be walking my hands to the side in a child's pose. I'll do the side towards you so you can see. Hopefully you're comfortable bringing your bottom to your heels. If you struggle, maybe flex the ankles. From there, we're trying to bring hands together or as near as you can get. Lift hands too close and uncomfortable, go wider. Forehead on the ground, and then we're going to walk our hands round. This is the side I'm stretching. So as I walk to my right, slow breaths, and walk both hands simultaneously until I feel a stretch. Now for me the stretch is on the side that I've walked away from, so it's my left side. I take a breath or two, and let my ribcage lift a bit if I need to, or exaggerate it. And then if that releases a bit, I can go a bit further. Now some of you might find a stretch underneath the armpit. Some of you will be the lower back. It will depend on where your tightest tissue is and this what we call lateral line. Couple of breaths here. If it releases, you can go a bit further. Okay, come back to the center. Realign the head in the middle. And now walk the opposite way for me. Find the first tissue barriers. I've got a stretch already on this side, a bit tighter here. Couple of breaths. As it relaxes, I'll walk a little bit further. I've got the neck stretch. I'm going to hang out the neck stretch. I'm going to hold this position for a couple of breaths. Let the ribcage rise. You can get the breath into the stomach and then the ribcage. When it releases, walk a little bit further. I'm going to hang out in that new stretch. Okay, bend the elbows, bring yourself back in a little mini press up, bring yourself up from that position. Okay, from there, we're going to go into a dead bug. So we're going to build off the leg lowering, but we're going to add an arm into it. Now, I'm going to show you the one thing I want you to focus on. I'm trying to make this as hard as possible, not let you get as many as possible. So if I do a dead bug and my knees are drawn to my chest, so let me just clarify what a dead bug is. A dead bug will be opposite arm and leg, simple as that. But if you bring your knees here, you're not supporting with your core. I want your knees in line. I've got nice straight lines for you today. The straight line down my tracksuit, that's the position. It should be a vertical line. It should not be flexed back. Hold that position. Work to control pressure against the floor during in. So just as before, now you haven't got your fingertips to push into the ground, but you can imagine you're trying to gently create that compression downwards to stop your lower back going into the arch as the leg lengthens. So now we're just adding the leg to the arm to give my watch. Now, I just found myself cheating. I found my legs coming back a little bit. So I'm going to reinforce the correct position. I'm going to do 4 more. If it gets easier, you probably started to try and find a compensation or a little bit of cheating. So tighten the technique up. If it's done well, it's actually really quite a tough exercise. If you start shaking, that's good. It shows you're doing really good work. Okay, from there, we're going to stretch the abs out. So some of the abdominal wall, you can get what we call trigger points. You can get areas where you need to stretch. So we're kind of trying to use activation followed by stretching to help open some of the tissues up and maybe get tight. So this is something adaptive, what we call a Mackenzie press up. We're going to simply come in this position. Our hands are wide. They're about level with mid-chest. And we're going to slowly push ourselves up. We're not trying to press up. Some of you will be in this position. If you get stuck in that position, you can go onto your elbows. The idea is to stretch the abs out. So if you can come up higher, do so. You're trying to keep the pelvis on the ground. So I want the pubic bone on the floor. The top of the pelvis, the belt line, will lift up slightly. If there's any compression, discomfort in your lower back, you need to lower down. You've gone too high for your flexibility. Slow breaths into the tummy. As you breathe in through the tummy, so what we call diaphragmatic breathing, there should be a little bit of stretch on the abs. I feel that stretch increase slightly. We can always do, also you squeeze your bottom gently. If you squeeze your glutes slightly, it will also help stabilize your lower back. Last couple of breaths. And if you lengthen, you can get higher up as you relax into it, you can do that. Okay, push yourself up with your hands into the next part. So now we're stretching the abs and we're going to work the opposing movement to the dead bug, which is a quadruped. Those on the class before know what I'm looking for. I'm looking to imagine your pelvis and your shoulders do not move. I don't want to see that as you lift a leg up, your pelvis twists, or when you lift an arm up, your shoulder level lifts. I'll do a couple of reps to highlight what I'm looking for. I'm looking to keep everything completely level and only go to the length I can get. If you lift your leg too high, you rotate. If you've got a stiff shoulder and you lift too high, you'll rotate. So I'm not concerned about how high you lift. So join in. It's simply going to be lengthen rather than reaching up. So if you struggle with overhead presses, you will not get your arm overhead. It doesn't matter. You just keep your shoulders level and you feel your glute stabilizes your pelvis, your abdominal wall stabilizes your spine. Go nice and slow, slow enough that you can feel what's happening. So if you were to put a cup of coffee on my shoulders and on my pelvis, hopefully I wouldn't spill anything. Now the hardest point is actually lowering the leg down. As I lower the leg down, I've got to think about keeping this part of the pelvis level. 4 more. You should feel your abdominals tighten up, particularly something called a transverse abdominis. It goes around you into your natural corset. It inserts into the discs, the lumbar spine. Last rep. Okay. Right, we're going upper level now. So that's sequence 2 done after warm up. Get a quick sip of water. You're into 3. This is actually a bit, this is a bit easier. Then it gets harder. So your core muscles, everyone thinks about six-pack. Well, it's not that. It's everything that goes around you. And they have many functions. They flex you. They also stabilize you. So in the real world, you don't lie on the floor. You stand up. So we're going to do real world core training. We're going to balance. So what we're doing, I need you to stand yourself up. I also need you to consider what's around you. There's a few progressions here. We're going to do the safer ones because there is a progression with your eyes shut. We're not doing that. I don't want anyone falling over. Now I've got nice lines on the floor, like a little tightrope. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to stand on the equivalent of your tightrope. And from there, to show you where the loading should be, I can lift my front leg up. All the weight is in my back leg. So I'll show you sideways. I'm just in this position. Now, I'm going to face you. You're going to pick a focal point. And as simple as that. What I'm looking for is, if you're a little bit unstable, you'll already feel your lower limb on the back leg and the foot muscles starting to actually work and fire up. Those who've got a little more control in their lower limb muscles, you're going to add to it by changing what's called your vestibular system. So we're going to slowly rotate our head. Now that gets quite a bit harder. Now as you slowly rotate your head, and if you go too quick, it'll be very hard. Go as slow as you need to go to keep control. And as we move the head round, the little gyroscopes inside your inner ear that make up the vestibular system are going to be slightly confused. And that's going to make the mechanoreceptors that sit in the joints and the muscle have to work a little bit harder to do their job, and then they're going to get a bit stronger. Okay, from there, going to change its sides. This gets a bit tougher as we go. We're going to add some variables to it. So we'll start, again, in our tightrope position to show the front leg is light, the back leg is loaded, pelvis should be level. And then again, if you're challenged, we'll spend a few seconds here. The reason we're also doing a single leg training in a line is if you do this, people tend to bend and twist and contort themselves to find what they can do, which isn't necessarily the correct thing. This will stop you adapting and compensating. Once you've done this for a few seconds, let's add to it. Again, go as slow as you need to go. If you've got a history of ankle sprains, you also might find the side that you've sprained the ankle on is compromised, because when you stretch ligaments in the ankle, that will actually change their proprioception. As the ligaments get stretched, they get a bit confused, they don't feed into the brain and central nervous system properly. So this is a nice rehab exercise to help develop the stability. If you've also got a collapsed arch or loss of arches on either foot, that will also make things harder. But that's why we do these things. We're trying to reinforce better mechanics in the lower limb. Last couple. Progression could be you can speed up your movement, but you go to a level that you're comfortable with. Okay, next one. We're going to build on that. We're going to use that in movement. So what we're going to be doing this time, when you were here, you had your pelvis level. The goal is I'm going to let you lift one leg up. But as you notice, when I lift my leg up, my pelvis, these levels here don't move. That's your goal. If you lift the leg up and you move, I want you to try and change it because you're using the wrong muscles in the wrong way. And that's not our goal. So if you're not sure, start in your line, place your hands on your hips, then lift your foot and see if you can keep level. The opposite hand is going to come to the knee. We're going to simply push our bottom backwards, load our hamstrings and glutes, and then we're going to come back up. We're going to do half dozen reps. If you're more flexible, make sure you don't kick anything around you and behind you, but you can go lower down. You can do more funky versions where you lengthen the leg and you go into parallel. I think the key is you work at the level that you have the control. So if it's your knee, fine. And also picking a focal point will help because you've got your visual input. That's one of the three senses you'll use for balance, along with the inner ear and the joint receptors. Last couple of reps, if you're not sure, double check the pelvis so you come back to the same position. Always keep one hand on there. I will say if you're standing on a thick carpet or your mat, that will make it harder. And if you're barefoot, that will almost make it a bit harder if you haven't got your arch in your shoe to support you. Okay, change sides. Again, let's start in the inline position. Hold our pelvis. When we bring the leg up, let's try and keep everything level. And then from there, whatever you do on the side, match it. So if you're going to your knee, to the knee. If you're going to mid-shin, go to mid-shin. Make sure you come to the same position each time. If you're going to the toes, go to there. If you're doing more of a Romanian deadlift, which is a single leg, you can do that version. The key is the quality of the movement. It's not just how far you go, it's how well you do it. Let's do 3 more reps. Just double check, is that pelvis level? And come back up. Okay, guys, we're going to come back to the mat and back onto the floor. I'm just going to move the camera slightly. Get a sip of water if you wish. How are we doing time-wise? Okay, getting a bit tougher now. Right, we're going into first round of, I would say, more traditional intensive core training. You're going to go into first movement. I'll show you 1 or 2 reps and you'll join in. We're going to go with the crunch. Now, the crunch, the reason I'm scaling this down a bit, I want you to think ribs and pelvis. When you crunch, the rib comes to pelvis. There is no more height. Anything beyond that is your hip flexors, not your abdominal wall. We're going to integrate that with the leg. So the leg is going to be long here. We already know how to control the leg. We'll be practicing that. Fingers and temples. I'm going to crunch up. I'm going to bring the ribs to pelvis. And also thinking pelvis to rib and bring that thigh to parallel. Then we lengthen again. On my tempo. Come up. Ribs, pelvis, pelvis, ribs. Control that down. Another little tip to help stabilize your spine correctly. Sounds a bit mad, but I'd like you all to just swallow and note where your tongue goes to. Your tongue will go to the roof of the mouth behind your front teeth. If you swallow and hold your tongue in that position, gently pushing the palate, you will activate what we call the deep cervical flexors, and they will attach to your collarbones and help stabilize your head and stop you overusing some of the more superficial muscles. Let's do 5 more. Ribs, pelvis, pelvis, ribs. Lengthen if it's too hard, you can shorten the lever by bringing your arms down, or hands to chest, or fingers to temples. The further you go away with the arms, the harder it's going to be. Okay, we're going to change sides. So let's have that thigh parallel. From here, take a little breath, keep the pressure on the lower back. Let's, sorry, my foot will come in, ribs to pelvis again, not too far the leg, just think about that pelvis comes to the rib cage, and lengthen. Nice and slow. So the whole time your lower back will be in contact with the floor. You're just peeling your upper spine off the ground. When we've run out of range of motion abdominal wall, Then stop. You're not trying to do like an ab mat sit like you might do in a class. This is quite a different movement. I want that control. So length of my leg, I'm keeping the pressure constant. I'm not letting my pelvis rotate left or right. Let's do 3 more. Constantly reinforcing. Ribs, pelvis, ribs, nice tight position. Keep control as you lengthen. And finish. Okay, take a few seconds rest. Next movement, we're going to turn you over and we're going to do a shoulder movement. So if we think about how muscles stabilize your spine, but also the muscles that stabilize your shoulder girdle. So in a minute, we're going to lay face down. We're going to squeeze our glutes. We're going to peel our chest off the floor, but our bottom rib will stay on the ground. It's really important. And don't want to overuse the lower back by pulling yourself off the ground too much. The arm positions, if you're tightening the shoulders, adapt it. But ideally, we're going to go, this is called a YTL. A Y, YMCA style. Thumbs point backwards. So it's Y, palms face downwards, T, and L into this position. This position very much shoulder blades come together, but don't overly squeeze. It's going to be Y, T, L. We're doing it face down. So this position, squeeze the glutes first. Start with your hands in the Y. Peel yourself, the ribs are on the ground still. Y position, T position, L position. Back round. Y, keep squeezing your glutes. Really important to squeeze your glutes here. Otherwise, you are going to overuse your lumbar erectors. If you also struggle, you can do a couple of reps and rest. Be aware of the main focus of your shoulder blades, muscles that sit round them and between them. I come palms down as I go into the T, palms stay down the L. Thumbs up in the Y, palms down in the T, elbows squeeze in, shoulder blades are ducked together in the L. 5 more. Y, T, L. Keep squeezing the glutes, reinforce what's happening. 3 more. Y, palms down T, elbows in L, thumbs up Y, palms down T, elbows in L. Last one for luck. And rest. Okay, so you should be aware now of that position after moving around all those muscles around the shoulder blade, particularly the tips of the shoulder and the spine. That's where you've been working. We're doing one more round, those same 2 movements. Let's just do 10 of each. So from here, we have the Y. Sorry, what am I saying? Okay, let's go to the crunch. So we start long, pelvis down, ribs to pelvis, pelvis ribs, 10 reps on my tempo. 2, 'Make sure you keep the lumbar in control as you go back out. 5 more. Remember, tongue, roof, mouth. Change sides. Again, reinforce control. The pelvis stays stable. The lower back is gently pushed against the ground. The leg lengthens. You're thinking what structures are moving. The rib cage, the pelvis. Keep the tongue gently pushing the palate. Obviously, I can't do that. That's your goal. Last 3. We turn back over. We go back into, let's just do 8 reps of the YTL because we're getting times against us. I want to do a quick Tabata to finish. So from here, start in the Y, squeeze your glutes. Lift up the rib cage slightly. We keep the bottom rib on the ground, the Y. So Y, palms down T, elbows in L. Thumbs up Y, palms down, elbows in. Keep reinforcing the glutes. Be aware which muscles should be working, glutes and upper back muscles. Also keep looking at the floor. We're keeping the neck aligned. We don't want to be flexing it or extending it. We just should be neutral. Last 3, 2, last rep. Okay, take a quick rest. Time is against us, but we'll finish. If you obviously need to go, please go, but if you can stay, please stay. We are going to go into a Tabata. For those you don't know, the Zumi Tabata created a nasty training thing. Protocol, it's supposed to be for cardio. We're going to use it for core. 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds rest, 8 rounds. We're doing 2 movements. I'm going to show you both the movements so that we can flow through the Tabata without stopping. You will get 10 seconds rest, I remember. So the first one's going to be a front line raise. I'm going to show you a few variations. What I want all of you to do is pay note to the foot position. So easy is a plank with your hands under your shoulders, but you'll start back a bit and then you pop onto the front of the foot. A harder position will be going further forward, but be careful, that is a tough position. But the key is ribs to pelvis, pelvis to ribs. You flex the lumbar spine. So we're doing what's called a hollow. So that's going to be, that's a static position. The second position is a Superman. The Superman will be very simple. It's going to be glutes engaged. We'll be doing the Y, but also legs. We're going to hold it. If you feel lower back, you're not squeezing your glutes enough, or you're trying to lift too high. That is a Superman. They're both static positions. So, 20 seconds of work. We turn over the other movement. We get 10 seconds between each movement. We'll be doing a total of 4 rounds of each movement. So let's get ready for a plank. 3, 2, 1. Up you come. Pop forward with the toes. How far you take your shoulders is up to you. You could have the shoulders over your hand. You could have more advanced position as I'm in. Hence I'm struggling to talk. It's quite tough. We have 8 seconds left. But I'm hollowing. I'm pulling ribs to pelvis and pelvis to ribs, reinforcing everything you've built up so far. And rest. So you see what I've been doing is been layering information to your brain. Neurologically showing your brain what every pattern is. Okay, Superman, 3, 2, we're off. Squeeze the glutes. The bottom rib is still on the ground. The head is looking down. The chin's a few inches off the floor. The arms stay high. If you fatigue, you'll start dropping. Stay high with the arms. Keep squeezing the glutes. And rest. Get ready for the next one. We'll go back in. So that's the first round. You've got 4 of those in total. Back into the plank. 2, 1. Pop onto the front of the foot. On the toes. Take the shoulders over the wrists if you can. Keep your hollow position. Don't look up. You're just looking down. I'm looking at my feet. Nice breaths. Ribs, pelvis and pelvis. Keep nice and tight, not hollow. And rest. We've got 5 seconds rest. Back into our Superman. Down we come. And we're off. Squeeze the glutes. You can get the leg off the ground. Think about doing the skydive, almost in that position. Keep those hands nice and high. Our glutes engaged. And our bottom rib on the ground still. And rest. Round 2 done. 5 seconds left. Back up the plank. And go on the toes. You want to make it harder. Bring the shoulders further forward, but lock out those elbows. Keep it hollow. Ribs to pelvis, pelvis to ribs. Last 5. And rest. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely feeling this working. Last 3 seconds. 2, 1. Squeeze the glutes and lift. Thumbs high. Ribs on the ground. Just the upper few ribs are off. Try and get those legs off the ground as well. Keep squeezing the glutes. Protect your back. Okay, I'm starting to shake, so hopefully you are as well. This is getting quite tough. Last 3, final round. Up we come, hop onto the front of the foot. If you start fatiguing, just walk it back a bit. If not, challenge your position. Locking out those elbows, pulling that hollow. Ribs to pelvis, pelvis ribs. Elbows locked out, keep tight. 3, 2, 1, rest. Woo, final one. Last Superman. Keep those glutes engaged. You must protect your back in this movement. And up we come. Keep the hands nice and high. Don't let them drop. Just feel those shoulder blade muscles working. The glutes working. Heart rate should be getting higher as well. Got a lot of muscles working here. And rest. And ladies and gents, there was going to be more. The time's against us.